Hang on, guys. Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe if you have yet to do so. And if you get anything from my work, a connect a dot, an epiphany, a mind explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work at the bottom of the description. If you're interested in artwork, like those right there, one of a kind, pyramids, lots of them on the floor, cool skulls, they could be paperweights, they could sit on your mantle. Halloween's coming up. Pyramids, cool hearts. I have gremlins, lots of gremlins. Please consider going to my website, AllyKatCreations211.com. There you can see a portfolio of all the things that I do. And if you're interested, please email me, because that's the way I do everything. All my transactions is private through my email. And that's on the website, and that's also in the links below. Hi, everybody. So a lot of people have been asking, why are you wearing purple? Because my school, like the whole town, is under one little mascot, this said pirate, and I have to wear these t-shirts to work on Friday and during the week. I have to be prideful. And I didn't change. So this is going to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Personal survival, letters from hell. Now, before I read this, because I'm reading it with you guys, I'm going to tell you guys my perception. If what humanity claims to be hell, okay, we're here. This is that density. We're on a negative polarized plane of existence, and many of us volunteered to bring the light to change that polarity to positive. That's why we have the form of suffering, because most people that are of the light suffer to have deeper, meaningful learning, soul learning. They're going to tell you a note, so please take whatever you identify in your definitions, in your awareness to the level that you're at, and where you're at is where you're supposed to be. Don't you worry. That version of what you think is hell probably isn't. It's a state of consciousness, in my estimation. Don't take everything literal that a book tells you, and they're going to probably go into that as well. So I just wanted to get that out there so that people are like, oh my God, the devil. Because I tell you guys how I feel about all of that anyway, because it's an illusion and it's what we create and the storyline that we created so that we can experience it, so that we could get the disillusionment out of the way, so we could stop fearing shit that we wrote for our own selves. Letters from hell. Note to the reader. If you have recently lost a dear one by graduation, love the raw stuff, from Earth life, do not connect the experiences related in this chapter with your loved one, for they will probably have no relation to the conditions through which your own pet is passing. We also recommend the reader not to read this chapter at night unless it is immediately followed by the reading of the next chapter, Letters from Heaven, before laying the book down, or else by repeating the prayer for protection, or by reading some chapter in the Bible, such as the 23rd pain Psalm. Like I said before, okay, they're just giving you that because back in their time, people took a lot of words from the Bible as literal. if you take the description of what I just said about what hell, the devil, demons, and all that is, it's thought forms that we created, we physically manifest. Your thoughts become things. So if you identify this negative polarity experience on the flat, toroidal, energetic plane of existence, the matrix reality that we live in, it is a negative polarity. You don't need to, you can define it as hell if that's how you wish to define it, but everybody defines words differently. There's a perplexity of paradox right there. So don't feed fear. We don't want to feed that side. We're moving forward. We're not looking back there. We're going forward. So what I'm about to read, whatever it is here, okay, is a story that we all wrote to learn from. When you detach emotions and when you detach meanings that, oh, the boogeyman's out to get you, no, you create it when you put it into your field. So, mind you, there are limitations and there is a soul contract that you wrote for specific experiences to happen to you, whether they be positive or negative, because both are a choice. And that's your free will to choose what you prefer over what you don't. But if you're not exposed to what you don't prefer, you don't know what you want to prefer and what your highest and best would be, because you didn't hit the low point. You didn't hit that pinnacle aspect that you needed to hit in order to have a realization and epiphany, the light shining down on you. So unless you are a fearful, nervous, anxious Nettie, and I love you guys too, just be mindful that all is illusion in third density. And even though we're still in fourth, a lot of us are dripping into both ping pong match. Take this as a grain of salt and as something just to pocket it in your mind. And we'll see how long this goes. I'll be nice. The text of the book, Letters from Hell, of which proportions of this chapter is a condensation, was written by a Spanish medium in 1882. And passed through several editions in various other languages. It is condensed and placed here because of the power of its truth to give concrete understanding of the conditions that are described in the Bible. There's your problem right there. As eternal torment, generally spoken of as hell. This description is necessary to complete our account of all after death conditions, even the lowest in which the drudges of humanity exist until through suffering they have progressed out of them. In the preface, the English translator says, quote, "When I say that the book is full of truth, I do not mean other truth of theory or truth in art, but something far deeper and higher, the realities of our relations to God and man, duty, all, in short, that belongs to the conscious. Prominent among these is the awful variety that we make our fate in unmaking ourselves, that men, in defacing the image of God in themselves, construct for themselves a world of horror and dismay, that our own deeds and character are the informing or inwardly creating cause of our outer darkness." Truth. That if a man will not have God, he can never be rid of his weary and hateful self, end quote. Now, I'm going to pause a lot because I have a lot of channeling going on here. Not everybody uses the word God to describe the infinite all, the consciousness, creative thought, the monad, and the other varieties of what people call God. God backwards is dog. Many people can say Satan is God because that to them is what they worship. So I don't like to choose the word God. I call it source, creator, infinite intelligence, the consciousness, the end all be all of all things, I am all in presence. Whatever your definition of the highest of all that created your vehicle, you and your soul, take it as that. But you wrote your soul contract before you even got here. So, yeah, we have your thoughts become things. So if you're thinking low vibratory state things like my life sucks, I live in poverty, I'm never going to get this done, this is never going to happen for me, you're lowering your vibration so that those things cannot be attracted to you. You are a conductor of electricity and you are magnetic. Therefore, you're putting into your field what you're going to get back. So if you think everything is horrible and the world is out to get you and God's horrible, but there's a lot of people who don't even believe in the God paradigm, the all that is paradigm. Doesn't necessarily matter if they do or don't. It's understanding the self and believing in self. When you believe in yourself and you give that power that is still source fractaled within you, everybody's omnipresent and omnipotent is because source is everything and everyone. Combined together, Captain Planet. So your thoughts become things, and the things that you think about manifest in your outside world, the outside world. I'm creative. I create creative things. People write books. People do so many things. Okay. Happy thoughts, even in the midst of chaos. This book has a fearful title and is far more fearful than its title, but it will help to turn away from that which alone is really horrible. The doing of unrighteousness. It will prove itself the outcome of divine energy of deliverance. We quote, I have lived a life of selfishness, ever pleasing my own desire. It was true, awfully true, that I had not followed the way of life, but the path of death, since the days even of childhood. And now I lay dying, a victim of my own folly, wretched, hopelessly lost. One after another, my sins rose before me, crying for expiration, but it was too late. Now, too late for repentance. Despair only was left. The very thought of repentance had faded from the brain. An unknown sensation laid hold of me. What was this I felt? Death had a clutch my every fiber, but I seemed released, free, strangling, free. Consciousness had been fading, but was returning even now, waking as from a swoon. But consciousness at first seemed returned chiefly to experience an indescribable feeling of nakedness, which indeed might explain the terrible cold assailing me. I still believe in my personal identity, but I was merely a shadow of myself. The eye which saw, the teeth which chattered, did not exist any more than the rest of my earthly body existed. All that was left of me was an astral shade, unclothed to the skin, nigh to the innermost soul. No wonder I shivered, no wonder I felt naked, but the feeling of nakedness, strong as it was, excluded shame. I had died and found myself in hell. In that place of weeping and gnashing of teeth, of torment, alas, beyond conception, this then, was the end of life's enjoyment. In spite of the self-love which I had accompanied me hither unimpaired, I hated myself with a burning I'm not pronouncing that word, damn it. Hatred. It's not going to come out. I felt sad, I felt ruined and miserably undone. I condemned, I cursed, but repentance was far from me. The power of repentance was lost. And remembering the many so-called good intentions of my sinful soul, I felt ready to tear myself to pieces. In sooth, I myself had assisted diligently in paving the road to hell, but that feeling was devoid of contrition. I started suddenly. There was a young woman beside me with a babe on her arm. It is hopeless trying, she said almost tenderly. I myself had tried it and tried again, but it's no use. There is no water here, not as much as a singular tear. Alas, I felt she spoke the truth. I longed to weep, but could not. The young woman sat down beside me. Indescribably touching was the expression of sorrowing fondness with which she gazed upon the babe in her lap, a tiny thing which appeared and apparently had not lived many days. Don't you think my baby is still alive? She said. It is not dead. It is asleep. To tell the truth, I thought the baby was dead, but I had it not in me to grieve the poor creature. So I said, it may be asleep. Babies do sleep a great deal. Yes, yes, it is asleep, she repeated softly, rocking the child. They say I killed my child, my own little baby, she continued. But don't you think they talk foolishly? How could a mother find it in her heart to kill her child, her very own child? And she pressed the little thing to her bosom with convulsive tenderness. The sight was more than I could endure, and I rose and left her. Yet it soothed my own misery that for a moment I seemed filled with another's grief rather than my own. Her grief I could leave behind. I fled, but my own wretchedness followed on my heels. I seemed to be in front of a tavern. They were making merry within, drinking, gambling, making merry, and whatnot. But it was an awful merriment in which those horrible astral shades were engaged. The landlord beckoned me to enter. An inviting fire was blazing on the hearth, and shivering as I was, I went towards it. Can't you come in by the door? He snarled. I stammered. I'm so cold, so miserably cold. The more fool you for going naked, cried the fellow with the ugly grin. We admit only well-dressed people as a rule. Involuntarily, I thought of my warm clothing, and scarcely had the idea been shaped in my brain. I found myself clothed. At the same time, my nakedness was not covered, and I felt as cold as before. I moved towards the hearth and put my trembling hands to the grate. The blazing emitted no warmth. I turned away in despair. The merry-making shades laughed harshly, calling me a fool for my pains. One of them handed me a goblet. I seized a cup and lifted it up to my lips that I might drain it. Alas, the nothingness. My burning desire found it an empty cup, and I felt ready to faint. What house is this? It is my house. How did it come to be here? The landlord looked at me with a sneer. How did it come to be here? Why, I thought of it, and there it was. Then the house is merely an idea. Yes, of course. Here we are in the true land of magic. We need but image a thing, and then we have it. Ha ha ha! I'm going to get into that. Hang on. Your thoughts create things. This is how we manifest in the higher densities or in the astral plane. That's the scary part. These people have to stop. Odin's here. In that realm, what you need is there for you because you think it and it becomes so. Holy crap! Sorry. Just never left alone. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So, one thing only was no empty idea. but fearful reality, the terrible necessity which forced these shadowy semblances of men to appear to be doing now in the spirit the very thing they did in the body upon earth. It is impossible for me to tell you to what extent a man here may shrink together within himself. I carried as a toad in a hole, hugging my miserable being until I was aroused by a groan coming from somewhere beside me. I started affrighted and looked about, the darkness being still increasing. I distinguished another cowering figure looking at me furtively. The face was strongly distorted, and the creature had a rope around its neck, the hands trying constantly to secure the ends. At times, also a finger would move around the neck as if to loosen the rope. The figure looked at me with eyes of terror starting from the head, but not a word would cross the lips. It was plain I must make the beginning. The light is decreasing. I fear we shall be quite in the dark presently. Yes. How long will it last? How should I know? It may be some hours. It may be hundreds of years. It is always longingly, frightfully long. But it is quite certain that daylight will appear. If you call the daylight which we used to call dusk upon earth, we never get more. I see you are a newcomer here. Yes, quite new. I died but lately, a natural death. The distorted face looked at me with a horrible grimace, and there was silence. The spectre resumed ere long. It is hard to be doomed to carry one's life in one's hands. There is no rest for me anywhere. I am forever trying to escape. There is not a creature but wants to hang me. Indeed, you are capable of doing it yourself. I see it in your eyes. Do you see the ends of this rope? It is my one aim to prevent people from getting hold of them. For if once they succeed, I shall be hanged in a jiffy. It is but foolishness and imagination, I know, but I am utterly helpless, and whenever the foolish fear possesses me afresh, I must run as though I had 1,000 lives to lose. I made some movement with the arm nearest my wretched neighbor. Evidently, he imagined I was for seizing the rope, the ends of which he was tightly grasping, and like a flash of lightning, he vanished from my side. The light decreased until at last it was the mere ghost of a radiance. It was plain I should find myself in utter darkness ere long. Darkness here is so dense, so heavy. It oppresses poor souls as with the weight of centuries. The Bible calls it the outer darkness. Terrible truth, that the torments of hell should consist in an awful contrast, cold without and a consuming fire within. There burn within me the quenchless torment of sin and sinful desire. If conscious, while on earth, at times made some effort to be heard, the voice was so gentle that I never hesitated to disregard it. You must know that each wretched being here is moved by irrepressible impulse to imitate his life on earth. Passion and wrongful desires rule here as they do on the earth, only the more horribly being void of substance. No matter how deeply conscious we are of the vanity of our doings, no matter how we loathe them, they have come to be our masters. We are helplessly driven to be forever trying to be what we were on earth. There is no sense of left to gratify. Reality has vanished. The greed only remains. Wow. Geography of hell. Hell has its own geography. No one can tell how far its realm extends. In the direction of the pale light that increases and decreases alternatively, there is a great gulf, a fathomless abyss, separating hell from paradise. It is paradise whence that radiance proceeds, and from the abyss apparently dead darkness gushes forth, repressing the far faint off light of heaven. At times a cataract of light bursts forth, victoriously overshadowing from the heart of glory. Hell stands drizzled, struck to the core, and it is not only paradise that we see, but the blessed ones who dwell there. It is only by pushing toward and absorbing the light that there is any hope for redemption. From another authoritative source, we recount more vivid descriptions of the various aspects of the regions of hell, worlds, which conform and confirm that already given. These are the experiences of those who, by their way of living on this earth plane, have built for themselves a house of bondage and robes of sorrow for the spirit world until such time as they are able to work out their own redemption by the recognition and acceptance of the love and power of God, or whatever they call upon. Other experiences. We received the following from a disincarnate spirit whilst in England. The writer received from an unknown spirit the first experiences of this spirit in the spirit world. He said that he found himself with a number of others in utter darkness, cold, hungry, and most miserable. In endeavoring to advance, he and his companions found their progress obstructed by a massive and lofty wall. They felt along it to discover some door, a passage through it, but could find none. Though they continued their search to a great distance, at length in despair, they shouted to make someone hear them, but for a long time received no answer, but a dreary and hollow echo. All else was silent, dead, a vacancy, and a most terrible negation. They burst into tears and cries of despair and desperation, with a length of voice demanded who they were and what they wanted. They replied that they were newly disembodied spirits who were perishing with cold, starvation, and nakedness. The response was, you lived selfish lives, lived for yourselves while on earth. You felt no thankfulness to God, nor did you ever cherish in your hearts true love for your fellow men, as you were an animate wall to humanity, an animate wall now raised inexorably before you, cutting off all admission to more favorable regions. This terrible announcement struck them down like dead men. They bewailed themselves bitterly and cried for mercy and pardon, and at length a voice exclaimed, arise, and a strong hand was put forth from the darkness, and the apparent impassable wall gave way to the mighty hand, and they found themselves in a dusky, as it were, Cimmerian meadow, where friendly beings fed and clothed them and told them that now they were on the open highway to the pilgrimage of eternity and must advance, grow pure, and enjoy according to their own exhortations, to the obedience of their spiritual guides, to the prayerful love they exercise to their great Father, to the law of Christ, and to the love of their neighbor. The laminate of John Jacob Astor from the spirit world through the mediumship of Miss Content. Gold is the strongest tie which binds men to earth. And if I were on earth again, I would not be the owner of gold. I would rather take the chance of the beggar than that of the rich man. I would rather be cradled in sorrow on earth, for then I would better appreciate the joys of heaven. And as all men sin, so all men must be punished. I'd rather receive my punishment on earth than in the land where we all hope for happiness. Yes, yes. I would rather be a Lazarus, much rather. And could I again be transported to earth, could I again animate a material form, I would pray that God would give me the surroundings of a Lazarus rather than the surroundings of a rich man. When the rich man finds death at his door, he fears to leave his apparently real happiness for the imaginary, for that he knows nothing of. But when the poor man dies, he says, I have nothing here to bind me. My chance is equally good in the land of the spirits. All things that went up to make my sum of happiness on earth are denied me in heaven. I partake not of its glories, for each individual forms his own heaven and his own hell. Yes! Heaven may be within me, above me, around me and yet not of me. I may not be happy, though others may be happy around me. How long am I to remain so? I do not know. I know, however, that he who judges righteously will not judge me harshly. The personal experience of Aaron Knight gave from the spirit world. Although my father was a prominent churchman and my brother, the Reverend James Knight, an English clergyman, I was a materialist and given to intoxicating liquors. Coming to consciousness and spiritual life, I was at first inclined to doubt my existence. At least I could not realize that my body was dead. I saw my body buried, which when all done, the attending spirits left me to myself, left me alone. Why did I say yes? Heaven may be within me, above me and around me. Those are states of consciousness. Those are states of thinking. Those are the awarenesses that we all strive for. When you are a service to others, you have to have faith. I'm going to put my own little spin on this. Most of us have had extremely difficult lives. I know I have. I'm living it now. Grueling, long days, worked since I was 14, but even before then, everything was dealt to me in much harder terms because I had a lot of lessons here to learn, and many of you did too. Fun times. But as my awareness, as my experience and my wisdom has grown, because a lot of people don't realize when I go to work, they don't look at me like I am 41 years old. They think I'm like most of the staff is in their 20s and early 30s. And they don't perceive me as this like old lady, which I'm not, but compared to them, I am. Everybody's like, I graduated in 2016. I'm like, holy crap, I graduated college in 2005. I saw 9/11. And it blows people away because I don't act my age. I don't need to. I act me. I'm my authentic self. I hope I'm giving that away. But you create your own heaven and your circumstances. When people are all about them and they're not going about Amish mindset and they're not helping people, they're going to be stuck in these states unless they transcend and they get into reality that we all must help each other. And we all have different missions and different callings. I know for myself, I'm called to help and work on children. I am with the most extremes of children right now that don't have ways of communicating properly, that they are all within their own little bodies, so overly sensitized, can't communicate properly. It's heartbreaking, but it is a big energy drain on me because I'm holding the light for them and as I'm trying to heal them. And I'm getting a lot more extremes in my classroom. And no, I am not a teacher. Just want to put that out there. I don't have my teaching license. I'm a para. This is my specialty. I teach life skills to children, like how to toilet, how to go to the bathroom, how to wipe, how to play properly, hold them when they're tantruming, give them a hug when they need a hug, play and do what I need to do on an everyday basis. It's a draining but very rewarding job. Doesn't make much here at all. And that's where a part of me is freaking out because I need another source of income. But I have faith that things are going to hopefully get better in my life. Maybe once and for all. Hopefully we see. But it's all the state of mind. Like I'm happy. I wake up and I'm tired, but I'm happy. I'm overwhelmed at work, but I'm happy because I know my goal. I know what my mission is. And I try to strive each day to bring those kids a smile and joy. And even the kids that see me in the hallway, they love me because I'm silly and I am myself. And some of the teachers are like so hardcore. They're not evil. They're just, those kids are rough. They're not easy. It's it's a state of mind. And I know people who live in the lower vibratory state, like no matter what I do, I'm never going to get forward. I'm never moving forward. I'm never going to get this and that. And I try and I try. Well, what are you trying that you're not changing up the trying? Do different, you get different results. Little incremental changes in your life will change your mindset out of this hellish shit. But are you being selfish? Are you only given to you're only focused on giving your wealth to one entity or one thing instead of dispersing it in many little chunks to people that might be able to use it, need it, create with it, whatever, live off of it. I know when I give. Like today, I haven't had a paycheck yet. And I'm going through my house and going through all my educational stuff and seeing what I can donate to my classroom to make my teacher, because everything here you have to buy yourself. And for my teacher, that's really difficult because you don't make much and you're not getting parent money or donations. So, and she's a new teacher. So I'm going through my bag of tricks. I donated a bunch of my, I have like right there is all my read aloud books. And I had some old books. I donated them to my classroom. Never to know that they're going to probably be destroyed and ripped and whatever. But you know what? Those kids who like to read, and I have one that does, they can use those. That's my donation. JQ gave me Post-its. He uses a ton of Post-its. He's like, Allison, please take some. So I took some Post-its. I gave it to my teacher. I'm like, here, you're going to need a lot of these. Like, whatever I could bring to the table that I can donate. And again, it doesn't need to be monetary. What is something you have besides your thumb and your clicker finger to like and subscribe to a channel? I try on YouTube to help other people advance in their careers. There's no harm in that. I'll play other people's videos in the background so that they get the like hours, the watch hours. What are you doing for other people? It doesn't need to be financial. I go through what I don't need anymore and I donate it. I've always donated. What are you doing to help? That's what unity really comes down to. And it's a state of consciousness. It's wanting to do something to better humanity and society. And we're not waiting for a fucking light show to happen to do this. This state of hell that everybody feels and experiences right now is a big purging for us to realize if we don't come together and start being an impact to our communities, small communities, where you live, what can you provide? What is something you could do? Because that being a service to others will grant you that little heavenly letter. Hi. And all the medium books behind me down there somewhere. I have a million of them, not literal, figuratively. Like I have a whole rack of spiritual mediumship books. And they all very much, a lot of these letters are negative and they only focus on the positive, but they're, before we get back into the book, that last part with the taking of life, that person and having a noose. I have my birth mother that took her life, and my uncle, my adoptive dad's brother, took his life. Before my medium passed away, which is until our lights meet again, Barnard, my medium did pass. I'm very upset in terms of I can hear him, but I need somebody to help me hear. He told me that my uncle was lingering in this hell from 1980. I think he died in 80, 82. I don't remember. He lingered until my dad, my mom got, oh, your uncle's coming around. Oh, we need to cross him over and you need to help. Wasn't fun. But now my uncle's healing, and it's been 3 years. He's healing, and I know. I was thanked. But a lot of these scenarios, it's not necessarily hell. It's a state of mind that you put yourself in because now you're here in judgment. God doesn't judge you. You judge yourself. You see in your life review, they get life reviews, but their life reviews is not until they understand why they're in the state of where they are in the first place. These souls that are going through hell is because they couldn't see outside of themselves. They were narcissists. They only thought about themselves and what to gain, what financial, what greed. And the misconception that a lot of people have is the aggrandizement that happens without giving back to your community, and what people preach to say, oh, well, I'm giving back to society by having someone else deliver to you. I'm just giving you a platform to do it. To me, is not helping a community. So there's a lot of people out there that do that. I'm not saying they're going to hell, but they should really take a look in the mirror and figure out, okay, what are you doing with those 6 figures that you make off of everybody? What are you doing with it? Are you making a program to help people? Scholarships? What are you doing? Besides trying to rack more money in. So you create your own hell. You create the level of experience that you're going to have moving forward. As much as you're going to ascend, you can descend, and you're never going to be in the wrong spot, by the way. You're not. You're where you're supposed to be for a reason. And if it's taken us millions of epochs of linear continuing time space to get where we are right now, could you imagine every time that we passed in a physical vehicle, what that suffering was until we were reincarnated back and like, oh, we're back to learn another lesson that we failed to learn in the last life. This is a difference right now, is a game changer. We're not going back. We wrote a story. We wrote when we were going to ascend. We wrote if we're doing it in this vehicle or that we're going to get a new vehicle. We wrote all this whole story out for ourselves, and why we gave ourselves harder lives is so that we can go through the hell, gain the wisdom through the hell, so that all the experience that we have here, we don't have to do in another density where it becomes a lot harder to identify. Because in densities and dimensional spaces, experience in human form changes. It hasn't been done before. So we are clearing out the room for the higher self to come in, and we are clearing out the past, memorial karma because we only live in the time is now moment. So in linear space-time, we're clearing out, we're sweeping it away. Goodbye. But if you live in the state of being selfish, not having a service to others, not having a calling to serve others, and that could be an infinite amount of ways. But if you're only for self, with the illusionment that you're trying to help everybody else, but it's really you're gaining off of everybody, and what are you giving back is beyond me. And these people might end up having to review in a lower form before they move up. It's all states of being. So if you're going to live in fear, you're going to live in selfishness. What master are you serving? The negative polarized God within self. God wants you to see the light aspect of itself. Just saying. Sorry, I went off on tangents. Like I said, I am channeling. Most of the time I'm reading their books, I'm getting a lot of spirals going on in my mind. So I do apologize if anybody's like, what the hell? This is not a part of the book. Back to the book. Quote, the atmosphere was dark and hued and hazy. I said to myself, how strange. I see no God, no devil, no heaven, no hell. And yet I exist. But oh, so lonely. All I learned in our life, if not in yours, that penalties like shadows follow us, each and all, and none can get away from themselves. After thinking intently upon some of the rollicking associates who passed to spirit-free before me, they were attracted to me by the psychic law of sympathy, and I joined them in their haunts and engaged in their frivolous pursuits. My spirit world at this time was my earth world, and my affections and thoughts continued on earthly things. My mind status and tendency of mind barred me away from the heavens. My home was in the hells, but they were hells not entirely devoid of an inferior kind of pleasure. Long, weary years rolled away before I made any perceivable progress. Remorse often stung me. I did not find complete rest. Some in states lower than mine had suffered intense anguish for long periods. They were willful in their blindness, their environments dark, waste barrens, fields, dismal swamps, gloomy dens, and caves of horror, accorded fully with their internal desires and motives. In the transition to a higher state of happiness, I was aided by my brother, the clergyman. I was dissatisfied with my associates, and while apart by myself praying, I saw that in the distance a star. Reverently continuing my soul's aspirations, the star seemed to approach nearer, expanding until it actually enveloped me in a halo of brightness. And out of this repleasant brightness, there came to be my brother. I begged permission to go home, to his home in the heavens, at once. No, he replied. You can only come to our heavenly world when prepared. Go directly to your old associates as a teacher. Aid and encourage them, and in blessing them, you will be thrice blessed. Often from the onward did my brother come to me, and thus aided by him and other noble teachers, I rapidly unfolded until my surroundings are now divinely beautiful, and I am permitted to minister to mortals. Like I said, it's all a state of mind. When you are on your passage to the unknown, the next level of existence, the plane of existence, it's your mindset. Are you going to detach emotionally from the things that hold you and bind you here? To the habits, your mindsets, your belief systems, all these things that can hinder you here. are you ready to detach emotionally from, so you're not stuck here? Black spots. I approached one of these black spots, and there in a miserable hovel was a human being. He was ghastly, thin, haggard, almost a skeleton. He knew no means of escape from the dark habitation where he was all alone. The most violent of human passions was raging in him, and he was walking back and forth like a chained tiger. There was a little light in that habitation of his, but it was an awful one. It was red, flame-like light of his own eyes. They were open and staring like burning coals with a black spot in their center. It was constantly straining to see something. The darkness was so horrible to him. He had no companion but his own hatred and the memory of his evil past. He passed once in a while in his walk, raising his clenched hands above his head, and cursed his maker that ever he had created him. He cursed also the false teachers who had pretended to tell him the consequences of a life of sin, and yet knew so little of them. They had told him of a hell of fire and brimstone only, and he knew that when he died, casting off his material garb, such a hell could have no effect on him. Now, waking to the reality of a hell far worse than he had ever been painted to him, he cursed God and man that he had been left alone to dare its torments, that he had been left in ignorance of what must follow the indulgence of the material passions to which he had given up his whole life. If he had seen the agony that was painted on his face, the despair and hatred that spoke in every lineament, the desperate passion that swelled every muscle, and the horrible fear that stole over him of what further might ensue, you would have shuddered and recoiled from the sight. And what aggravated all this suffering was his ignorance that there was any redemption for him, and the belief that it was forever. He clasped his hands over his head in a gesture of mute despair, and standing thus for a few minutes, he cried, "Oh, for annihilation!" If you could have heard the tone in which that imprecation was uttered, you could have formed an idea of the torments of the damned. Groveling in the dirt and withering in agony, he hobbled like the most furious maniac that Belhaem's worst cell ever saw. At length, from sheer exhaustion, he was still. And now, as he lay there, prostrate and exhausted, solitary in his utter darkness, all the evil deeds of his life chased each other through his memory, faithfully performing their terrible duty of retribution. Exploration of the hells by another spirit from the higher planes gives us the following. The spirit world, almost measureless in extent, has actual localities as well as conditions where sympathizing spirits meet. A higher spirit may visit the lower spheres, but the reverse is impossible. Densities and dimensions. Turning our attention to what is before us, we see in the widened distance a misty darkness, and as well, we descend in an opposite direction from which we came. The darkness becomes more and more intensified. There is no vegetation, no sparkling rivers, no smiling lakes. As we pass on, rising and crossing a range of hills, the harsh cries and the hoarse agonies that appall the soul reveal the fact that we are in the neighborhood of dark and undeveloped spirits. We stand for a moment to mature plans for the thorough investigation of these cities of strife. We each take a separate path, the darkness fading into a lurid dusk, phosphorescent light, until we came to a huge cavern around which are fierce reptiles, crawling lizards, and slimy serpents, winding around each other as though in fond embrace. In the atmosphere of vultures, black and dismal, everything is terribly repulsive. We come to the conclusion that these fierce, loathsome, and horrid creatures are the natural outbursts of just such dismal localities as this. City of Strife. We discover a capacious, vault-like room where reside two women and a man. Inquiring, we are informed that the two women in a quarrel about the man had, while on earth, murdered each other, one dying immediately and the other living a few days to rave in anger. The vile man stood after committed suicide. In malice, hate, and strife, they had lived on earth, and dying in strife, they were born into the spirit world, hence their home is in the city of strife. And as if to remind them of their past deeds, pictured streams of blood seemingly rolled down the sides of the deep black walls of their dismal abode. Relating the sad story to us, they occasionally quarreled, accusing each other and moaning in spirit as they do this, the reptiles and animals, so demon-like, without mock them, and ghastly bat-like creatures screech in dismal discords that echo through the cave chambers. Here these persons are doomed to remain until by punishment, by penance, by repentance, and active deeds of reparation, they shall make amends for the past. Leaving the cavern by its own entrance, we find ourselves once more in the more free but impure atmosphere. We come upon a cluster of wretched huts. Their exteriors are coarse and painful to behold, and their interiors are in perfect correspondence. Insects and lizards are also here, and the denizens of the air are pouring out with their jarring discords. The occupants of these squalid homes are of the same quarrelsome nature as the one we have just left. The city of strife is just named that. Interesting. Horror camp. Horrors camp. This has to be interesting. Traveling on our winding way over some barren hills whose frowning summits intercept the light from the brighter scenes in Horrors camp, its dwellers are numerous and principally those who have died in drunken fits or have come to these shores in some other vehicle of crime and sin. Not that they are merely dead in any particular passion, but having lived lives of vice. I am not pronouncing that word. Well, it's not, it's projecting it out of my mouth, not coming out. Not good lives. Driving far away the light of virtue, they enter spirit life in this impure state. It is really touching enough to melt the heart of the stouts to observe their furrowed brows, glaring eyes, straggling hair, and bony, sinewy frames have covered in scarlet garments. We observe that some of them gaze intently upon the dark and dismal walls without removing their eyes from the serpent-charmed spot. The senses of their past lives are in the most distinguishing features, floating before them visions and playing upon the walls. They are horrified at the sight of their own misdeeds, and they cry out occasionally in wailing choruses. Sometimes they vary this monotony by endeavoring to relieve their earthly lusts, but being unable, they are mortified and shocked with horror then resort to new orgies, hoping to realize some carnal delight. It is surprising to hear how some will talk to their comrades about virtue, to listen to their talk of some of them on earth have lived exemplary virtuous lives, and yet they're in the most deprived and degraded of any. These more talkative characters will draw plans. They will make return to earth. They may influence mortals, and in this way gratify their propensities. The affair generally ends in a quarrel. And so here they remain poor, vice-strong souls, hard bound. They sigh in relentless suspense, daily exhibiting their contempt for the laws of man and God. Hi, Odin. Hi, my buddy. Come here. I don't want you with this. Hi. Say hi to everybody. Say hi, everybody. Yeah, why move the chair over here? Say hi. Can I work?
I love you. Bye.
Hells mitigated. Three of us resolved to continue in one of these hells and watch the method of reaching and redeeming these people of the lower spheres. We select the case of a man who has been in darkness some time, yet seems possessed of some good tendencies. His abode is in a den beneath an overhanging cliff, dimly illumined by a ghastly light. It should be remembered that the divine light partially illuminates, and the divine life, by the law of influx, flows into all spheres. Unseen by this person, we watch him carefully, noticing every act and listening to every ejection. In this way, we learn that in a revengeful quarrel that his brother, while on earth, he inflicted upon himself a fatal wound and bore to his dark place, he gravitated to his own, sorry guys, his own place just as naturally as some stones falls to earth. Here, he indulges at a time in expression of anger, revenge, and terrible threats. Upon the occasion after these wild ravenings, we see him sitting upon a cliff and sadder than usual, doubtless thinking of his misspent and vicious life. He cries out in the fullness of his soul, "What? Am I here trying to slay my brother? Oh, heaven! I've been mad," and the tears, such as only spirits can shed, stream down his face upon the crystal rocks beneath, and while thus weeping, the vapor of his thoughts gather around him, infilling his demon home with sorrow. Soon we begin to witness his gradual transformation. The rocks disappear, the fierce howlings in the wind are hushed, and this seemingly lost soul, angel guided, finds himself in a dismal cellar in one of the filthy streets of Liverpool, England. Here, on a pallet of straw without the comforts of home, lies his brother almost dying, remembering at once his past unkindness. The scene touches his soul, vitals. He weeps, and tenderly blending over the sickly form, he prays, "O God, and O Father and Mother, angels, now forgive my past sins and make me better in the future. For Christ's sake, amen." His tears, his earnest prayers draw others to him through he is not aware of their presence. They give him strength, and he imparts it in love, waves of magnetism to his deeply wronged and suffering brother. This continues for months, the sick man growing weaker and fainter. But all this time, the good thoughts of each enlist the interest of higher spirits, while the two brothers, by their thoughts and deeds of kindness, build a home in the better land. The last we witness is when earth yields up its claim, and the released brother, leaving the body, is borne in slumber's sleep to the abode awaiting him by the brother now more angel made. As time passes on, the flowers grow, the trees sigh, the streams ripple, and the birds sing sweetly in adjoining groves. For no inharmony, no sloth abides in that home. And so in blessing another, the blessing is returned. Here you may ask, even though our motive was good, how could we leave our sun-bright abodes and tarry in the murky atmosphere of the hells? Be our answer. Spirits project the atmosphere or oral emanation in which they live and move. When descending into the hells, this personal atmosphere becomes a protective envelope, being positive to the general as well as to the individual atmosphere of the lower spheres. But if one attempts to ascend from lower to a higher sphere, his characteristic emanations are negative to the aromatic flames, which then become to him a consuming fire. We're going through this right now. Our higher selves have lowered their frequency to come into this lower dense form to help us, our own selves, our angels coming to help us bless and send positive energy and do good deeds unto others. in hopes that the abode that we already made ourselves will be acquired when we ascend, that the new earth that we're all trying to create is actually created for what we all want to manifest in this life. Oh, don't go anywhere, co-host number 3. So we're going through this right now. Why is everybody talking about flames? In regard to suicide, I could say that if men knew what awaits those who go out of their own hand, they would remain with the evil that they know. I don't necessarily agree with that. And that's only because I know that when my mother did that act, she ascended. She's healing. She has to make up for what she did to herself, but in her sacrificing herself, she saved me. She saved herself from a lot. That was her contract. And so many other people don't realize that that's what people write in for themselves. There is not a contract that is breached in God's planet, God's plane of existence. We all wrote these things in. So I don't necessarily believe in that. But once again, what that teaches, that act itself teaches us, and I had a lot of friends that did this, unfortunately. They came to a point of being in hell to its lowest extent, not being able to see the way out. I was in those spots a million times already in my lifetime. I didn't want to be here. And there's moments even now that I come into that mindset that what is this suffering worth? What not eating, trying my damnedest at every which way that I can possibly think, indifference, changing things up, moving away, and doing all that I do. Why do I continue to be in the same cycle of lack? And that's not because I have a lack mindset. I motivate myself every day to get up and to work hard for the little that I earn. The reward is what I do for the kids, but it's not equal energy exchange. And so a lot of us have this, and don't feel like you're alone in those feelings. You're here because you're persevering through hell. And in that journey, you're going through a lot. So please stay. In reading the above description, the basic comforting thought is that even in the blackest depths of hell, there is always the possibility and availability of reform and redemption, and that is absolutely true, whenever the soul desires or seeks it. In other words, since the love of God is all-powerful and everlasting, it is always available to those who seek it. There is no eternal damnation, but for only such a time as a soul condemns itself by its refusal to respond to the redemptive power of God's love. In these present days, when men are so gladly hearing afresh that in him is no darkness at all, it is believed that God can and could have created any man if he knew that he must live in torture through all eternity, and that his hatred toward evil cannot be expressed by injustice, itself the arch essence of evil. For certainty, it would be nothing less than injustice to punish indefinitely what was finitely committed, no sinner being capable of understanding the enormity of what he does. For they know not. And that ends that section. But that it's a mindset. It's detachment in the emotional states that we are deemed to have material things and that we are stuck to things that really don't hold any meaning once we die. Like when I pass away, I'm like, what the hell do I do with it all? And I need to have an estate or some, I don't know how, I don't know. I have to leave my stuff to somebody or to donate my books to somebody or whatever. But I'm not tied to these things. They're things. Like my animals. I'll see those two again, and I'll see Morgan and Ethan again. They'll be human. I'll probably be their guide, one of my fractals whizzing down to space time. As I'm in space time, the continuum of higher densities. We all have to look at it being a state of mind. And that in the all that is, you create these states. And in any moment in your waking moment of life, the breath that you breathe, you can make a change to your personality, to your state of being, like that. Just by saying, nope, no more. I'm putting a boundary up. I'm not allowing myself to be selfish. Or I'm going to, with all my riches, I'm going to see what I can do for others. You can make those snapshot changes. Just like that. Well, you know, I'm here with a purpose. What is it? Let me think about it. Instead of harboring on, I'm not good enough. Why hasn't anybody seen my resume? Why hasn't I gotten a job? I was in that state of mind until I stopped. And I said, well, those things are not for me. What is for me? Let me investigate. Let me just look at millions of jobs, see if anything pops out that calls my name. If we all take more of a not a less defeatist approach to things, we'd be in a better spot. When you're programmed to think you're not worthy, to think you can't get ahead. Yeah, there's some people on the hamster wheel for that experience. Once again, we write our stories. Unfortunately, for many of us who have a higher awareness, we're not meant to know why we wrote those stories, because we would then relinquish the lessons that we needed to learn from it if we knew it already. It's a lesson. It needs to be learned. So I am applying that same thing, and I keep asking my higher self, like, why do I keep getting jobs that pay me nothing, but I get the most reward from? But the universe is not rewarding me back and the things that I need. Why do I always have to stress, which I don't like to do, or have to beg other people to help me? I mean, most people are helping me from the bottom of their hearts with not having expectations of anything back, because I do the same thing. When I have it, I give it. I don't expect anything back. I do it because I'm a good person and I want people to thrive. But in the same breath, I rarely have it. And I'm not a hoarder. I don't hoard and salvage things for any purpose or reason. But we all need to look at the idea that we limit ourselves by sitting in this mindset of these people are evil and they're not coming back and they're going to hell and they're doing all this stuff. It's they asked for this experience to wake you up. And they're going to go through whatever they chose to experience in their other ascending lives. Who the F are you to judge? I don't like to see kids getting hurt or touched in inappropriate ways. I don't like the things that are going on in this world, but it's a projection of what you need to learn. And the more people that learn this and understand the deeper level of why these things happen, and then once you understand those things, you stop drawing its attention, you stop feeding it energy, you stop wasting time. Because let's face it, what's the root cause of these things? Greed. when you are a service to others, and even though you can't stop evil right now, because it's not meant to be stopped, it's still gonna continue and it's still gonna happen. What are you feeding your energy to? Why are you feeding your energy to it? And once you stop feeding it energy, it doesn't exist in your paradigm anymore. And then you shift the frequency of the earth and everybody around you because you're choosing not to feed into negative paradigms and negative narratives and programs. People are still stuck politically. Bad. I work with some of these people. I love them nonetheless. It's their perception. They're allowed to own it. It's their feelings and they're allowed to own it. It's their heart alignment and they're allowed to own it. Just like I have my own alignments and my own heart alignments. Not everybody's going to resonate with it or perceive those things as a truth. Are they going to go to hell because they have a belief system that differs from mine? No. Once we can get over that fact, because you think their side's bad or they're brainwashed, well, everybody's brainwashed to an extent. What hell are you trying to manifest for them? Because you don't like their politics or you don't like their ways of thinking. Remember, a lot of these people are not aware of the matrix and how real that is. Not everybody aligns with your truth. What is being asked of you is having compassion at this time, because we need to accept everybody's differences, whether you hate them, whether you think they're murderers, whether you think they're an Illuminati. It really shouldn't matter to you anymore. And if it does, you really need to readjust your thinking. Well, there's controllers. Why are you giving the controllers why are you calling them controllers in the first place? And why are you feeding them energy? You have to remember, we're in an in-between. I'm back in the matrix because eventually my role is going to change. It's a foot in the door, and it's a foot in the door for the right change, the spiritual change, to getting more awareness of the upgraded kids that are keep coming in droves and in the thousands now. The kids who cannot communicate, that everybody classifies as on a spectrum of some sort. They're our future. Don't discount them. But many of us are in the system now to start making the changes and opening up our mouths to the corruption, to the things that are no longer serving these children. Many of us are game changers, and I hope that many of you are those game changers that are going back in. We're the Neos. We saw the game for what it is. We have to go back and pull whatever we can back out so they can see it too. But we're not at the mass 0 point exodus of that, getting all of the people out. And we're not meant to. We're just here to seed our ideas, seed our truths, work with other people, and you never know who'll come and join you in your lighthouse. Because you're that angel coming down into the lower depths and the lower planes, grabbing these people who probably did not live the best lives and probably were the Grinches and the Scrooges of society. And once you have the understanding that you don't know the conditions in which people grew up in to make them that and shape them into the monster that they become, we never know someone's past childhood trauma that created the monster that you see today. there's a lot of messed up things in society that form and shape people. And when you're not in a compassionate state to give your love, regardless of what these people do, and you're not willing to give them love and understanding of, okay, so you did some bad shit, you're going to have to pay for it. But let me be a guiding voice for you or give you a sounding board to help you. I got kitties running back and forth and doing zoomies upstairs, and I hear it, and it's funny. We will be wiser for giving compassion. And who cares about genders and it's all a test. Are you compassionate? Do you have unconditional love for all things, for all of Source's creations? And that's all the creations that you see, even in the negative polarity that might be adverse to yours. Everything is a mirror. All these things are within you, reflecting back out in your outer world. Once you heal the inside portion of you, your reflection is no longer going to become a reflection. You're not going to be boggled down with the outside world boggling you with all these things you hate, because those are things you hate within yourself. When you understand you're androgynous, that you're both masculine and feminine, that you are one with all things, you're going to have to understand and respect the fact that those other selves are the very things that you hate and want dead. So take hell for a state of consciousness that if you don't want to reach into those depths of where these spirits were, work on being a better human being. Starts with you. Love yourself. Go within. Do the work. It's painful. It's suffering. It's torment. The dark night of the soul happens already. I'm on 7. And these ones lasted for a long time. I had at least 4 that were about a year that I was reflecting in introspection, trying to change and make things work. It sucks. But when you go and do the work on yourself, what's being reflected back at outside of you, when you change your mindset, things change. The last 2 years of my life has been profound. The journey has been profound. And I'm not understating that. I've come a long way spiritually as well. I am able to see and experience things that I wasn't able to as a kid. Things shift. But I stopped beating myself up for things I can't control. I saw where the lessons needed to be learned, and I'm learning every day. I'm changing my reactions. Even when things make me unhappy, I'm trying not to complain about them. There is healthy vent, and that is absolutely needed, because you got to get things out of you. So try changing your mindset. Get out of the paradigm that everything is out to get you, that to fear death, to fear what will come. We all wrote a story, and we all wrote the afterwards as well. So hopefully you make the choices now to shift to a higher timeline and get out of those little lower vibratory state timelines that is doing nothing for you but keeping you and hindering you. You're not ever in the wrong place, but once you realize that things are just feeling off and you don't like where you are, you stop becoming complacent with what life is giving you, and you start working on yourself to do better. And that journey takes a long time. So don't give up on yourself. It's all a test. It's all illusion. So guys, sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding your protective energy. Please go within. Please be the shoulder, be the lighthouse, seed your truths to all. And thank you so much for your support, and I really highly appreciate it. I say in my gratitudes every day, I am very grateful for the people that have been helping me behind the scenes. Very blessed. Because without them, I would not have internet. I would not have the lights on, and I would not be fed. And even if that is once a day, it is enough. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I hope to see you on the next one. Please change those mindsets. And hopefully I'll do a video tomorrow. Let's see. Bye for now.